Aviation Administration. Earning a gold medal in aviation maintenance at the 2016 Skills USA National Leadership and Skills Conference is former Westmec Aviation Maintenance Technology student and 2016 Deer Valley High School graduate Logan Huber. We'll make sure Logan gets that certificate. And finally, the 2016 Best High Schools Ranking Awards, the nation's top public high schools with gold, silver, and bronze medals, indicating their level of college readiness. The U.S. News rankings include data on more than 21,000 public high schools in 50 states and the District of Columbia. Deer Valley Unified School District is proud to have 4 high schools that receive medal awards. Principals, as I call your school, please come forward. Receiving the silver medal, Boulder Creek High School. Also receiving a silver medal, Mountain Ridge High School. Receiving a bronze medal, Deer Valley High School. And our other bronze medal winner, Sandra Day O'Connor High School. You need walk-up music. Congratulations to our principals, our teachers, and our staff.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We are now at governing board reports, so I will start with Mrs. O'Brien.
Tricky, very tricky.
Thank you, President Gregoire. Welcome back, everyone. I'm going to keep my board report short. It was great to get to go to a few of the schools with Dr. Weitenheimer that first week of school and see all the smiling faces, the teachers and administration, and of course our lovely students. And I am going to selfishly report as a former committee member of the calendar committee that I was happy to hear most everybody report that they liked the midweek start. I'm sure there are some naysayers out there, but I was happy that those that were talking to us were excited about it, and I hope that the calendar committee may consider that in the future. And good luck for an awesome year to everybody. And thank you, business partners. We cannot, our communities cannot do it without all of you. Thank you.
Thanks. Mrs. Ordway.
Welcome back, everybody. You had your first full week of school. The athletics have begun. You had your first full day or half day of professional development. I did get a chance to see how you teach like a pirate. I think that's how you get your hooks into the kids. Anyway, it was all about the first thing the kids see is going to be what they're going to get back to you. So I guess there's some kind of Paul Strauss going on. Also, I would ask for a report, an overview on ESSA, so we could, the ESSA Act, so we could let the public understand what the overview is and then see how it's going to affect our district. Just brief, it doesn't have to go into everything. Also, I would like to have a moment of silence for Goldwater's loss of one of their staff, and also for Desert Mountain's student. It's a loss to their families, but any loss to their family is a loss to our district family. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Fisher.
I guess welcome back again. That first week you get all excited, and then this is when the initial exhaustion kicks in. So have another cup of coffee. We'll get another week. The PLCs have begun, and all the learning across the district. It's wonderful to see the things on Twitter, especially the science. I'm really entertained by a lot of what our teachers are putting out. It's wonderful that they're using social media to let the public know what's happening in our district. And I want to thank Monica for encouraging. I've seen a lot of very positive changes with the messages that are being sent out, and it really helps to improve the image of the district. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Mr. Bear.
No report this evening.
And I don't have anybody in as well. Mr. or Dr. Mr. The superintendent, please. Sorry.
That's all right. We don't know who Cheyenne is, and we don't know who the superintendent is, but that's okay. We are, in fact, off to a great start. I do appreciate the campus principals that have opened their doors, and those that will open their doors for a quick visit from the superintendent in these first few days of school. They have been terrific, and great things are happening for kids all over this district. I'm very proud of that. I'd like to ask my two fine deputies to report on both sides of the house, the opening of school. And so, Dr. Galligan, do you want to go ahead and start?
President Gregoire, members of the board, Dr. Weitenheimer, and guests. A couple of really cool celebrations for us. Our developmental preschool teachers this year, for the Wednesday, Thursday, and most of them Friday before they started classes that Monday, were able to provide support directly to our kindergarten classrooms with children who had special needs, with programs that needed that transition and bridging. And we heard from so many of our campuses, principals, and teachers that the support that our developmental preschool teachers were able to give was vastly appreciated. In fact, we're going to make that an organizational change that will continue moving forward at the beginning of each year. Just that added layer of support on those first few days when we're all trying to settle in has been wonderful. Another really cool celebration was our Tri-University Tour event that occurred last week, with all 5 of our high schools being able to have their parents and seniors meet with our 3 major public universities and receive information, have breakout sessions on financial aid and other areas. They had set up a cafe with quick roundtables. So if a parent had just a fast question that they wanted to ask a university representative, they could do that and then go on to another session. It was well attended. This is our 2nd year to host the Tri-University Tour, and we are very appreciative to CCV, who hosted that event for us this year. Many thanks to our counselors and our administrators who really support this event for our kids and our families. And then one last one, we were able to expand our kindergarten Bright Child, which was a program at Canyon Springs, to Highland Lakes. And Highland Lakes just said, we have more than enough children and parents who are interested in having their kindergarten children participate in a Bright Child kindergarten program that then feeds directly into our gifted programming. So those are just some of the really wonderful highlights from the last couple of weeks.
President Gregoire, members of the board, Dr. Weitenheimer, we're pleased to be able to report that our budget's been set thanks to your approval and all the hard work of our finance folks. Materials have been ordered and delivered to the places that need to be. We've printed many materials that have been shipped and used that our print shop works on. Technology has been deployed throughout various locations throughout the district. We transported students, we fed students. Our facilities, as we reported last time, were ready for the start of the school year thanks to all of the hard work and the efforts that happened throughout the summer. We've hired numerous people. You're going to hear about that in the HR report that's coming up. Our payroll people have been busy trying to make sure that everybody's scheduled to be paid when they're scheduled to be paid. And then we also get to enjoy the enrollment numbers for this year. Unfortunately, the first 10 days have not occurred, so we haven't gone through the process of dropping what we refer to as no-shows. But as the report that we presented in the Friday update, and I have a little more current information up through yesterday, our enrollment is down just slightly over comparing this year to last year, this same time period. So anywhere from 0.5% up to 0.7%, about 200 students. So this is not inconsequential because, as a reminder, this is the first year that we will be subject to current year funding. Now, there is a caveat to that in that we will be held harmless from the reduction in students for this year. Although we are subject to current year funding, we get the greater of last year's ADM or this year's ADM. But if we were to lose students a second year, we would have a much bigger cliff to contend with in fiscal year 18. So it's still early in the year, but we have fewer students than we were expecting at the for the first week and a half of school. And we'll keep monitoring that and provide updates to the board as we do throughout the year.
That concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you, President Gregoire.
Okay, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Dr. Galligan, back to you.
Good evening, President Gregoire, members of the board, Dr. Weitenheimer, and guests. This evening, we have two reports for you. In our first report this evening, Kathy Borgeson, Manager of Academics and Assessment, and I will share the absolutely best news with celebrations from this summer's learning opportunities for students. While there were many amazing summer opportunities this past few months, including community education programs and our Summer Rocks camps, as well as our 21st Century Learning summer camps at Title I schools, this evening's report focuses on the academic achievements of students in our summer programs.
President Gregoire, members of the board, Dr. Weitenheimer, and guests, tonight we will provide you with data from the learning opportunities that were available to students this summer. These learning opportunities included high school course extension options, high school course advancement, credit recovery opportunities in various formats, extended school year for qualified special education students, and gifted learning camps. The June Extended Teaching or JET program at Barry Goldwater High School provided targeted students with the opportunity to continue working toward essential skill proficiency in their English language arts and math courses in order to close skill gaps and earn a passing grade in the course. This was the third year this program has operated. This year, 152 students participated in the JET program, which was the largest number of students to date. 88% of the students enrolled in English Language Arts JET program and 90% of the students enrolled in the Math JET program demonstrated proficiency in essential learning and thus passed the course by the end of the JET sessions this summer. Barry Goldwater High School will continue to monitor the students who participated in JET this year. It is expected that the students will show improved success in their coursework during the school year if the trend from the last 2 years holds true. Data for the past 2 years indicated that students involved in JET not only recover course credit during the summer, but show significant success in their coursework the following year. As you can see from the graph in 2014, 80% of the students passed their English Language Arts course and 81% of the students passed their math course during the year following their experience with JET. Likewise, in 2015, students showed improved success in the following school year, with 70% passing English Language Arts and 79% passing math. Sandra Day O'Connor also offered a course extension opportunity for select students. Students who were at 45 to 59% in English Language Arts or math at the end of the spring semester were invited to participate. The teachers determined where students had gaps in their learning and provided instruction in those areas. Of the 54 students who participated in the program, 52 students were able to show proficiency in the identified skill areas and receive credit for the course. Barry Goldwater High School, Boulder Creek High School, and Deer Valley High School offered geometry honors this summer. By taking geometry honors in this summer, strong math students are able to move ahead in the math sequence quicker, making them eligible for calculus courses or even college math courses in their senior year. Although students need a D to pass a course, students must earn a C or higher to earn the additional honor point for honors courses. I am very excited to report that 100% of the students at each school passed the course with a C or higher. Face-to-face credit recovery courses in English language arts and math were offered at both Deer Valley High School and Mountain Ridge High School. Credit recovery courses require students to take pre-assessments for each unit. For units in which students do not score as proficient, they complete the unit assignments and take a post-assessment. At Deer Valley High School, 119 of the 125 students, or 95%, were able to recover course credit. At Mountain Ridge High School, 41 of the 41 students, or 100% of the students who participated in the face-to-face credit recovery option, were able to recover course credit. eSchool is celebrating its most successful summer to date. 123 courses were offered with 788 students enrolled. The pass rate for the summer courses was over 86%. We believe the increase in passing rate is attributed in part to a major overhaul of the courses in which more interactive content has been embedded with increased communication opportunities between students and teachers. Additionally, the Canvas learning management system has been hugely helpful in providing a platform that seamlessly allows more interaction between students and their teachers. 7th and 8th graders who have failed one or more core academic courses are invited to participate in the eSchool Summer School for Middle School students in order to promote to the next grade. The program is a hybrid model in which students complete coursework online and meet with a highly qualified teacher each day for additional support. This summer, 54 students participated in one or more courses. As you can see, the vast majority of the students met proficiency in each of the subject areas. In all, 50 of the 54 students who participated in the middle school summer school passed the courses they needed in order to promote to the next grade. Extended school year is available for students with IEPs who meet specific qualification. ESY is held at Vista Peak School from June 13th to July 14th for 3 hours each day. 204 students participated, plus 5 students who received speech services. Gifted Rocks provides an opportunity for first through 8th graders, first through 8th grade students who are identified as gifted to participate in a summer camp designed specifically for their needs. Gifted students benefit from the time spent with their intellectual peers in engaging courses. 5 of these students were from outside the district, and 1 is actually now applying for the Renaissance program.
We want to thank the teachers and administrators who planned, organized, and delivered these summer learning opportunities for students. These programs and experiences have made a significant impact on the success of the students involved, whether it be to assist them in getting on track toward on-time graduation, filling learning gaps, providing opportunities for students to advance to more rigorous levels of learning, or to provide intellectual enrichment. We also want to thank the students and families who committed their time and effort and took advantage of these opportunities. In thinking forward to next summer, 2017, we plan to continue using a variety of delivery models for our students, from the more traditional face-to-face brick-and-mortar school to online learning, and combining the two for a blended approach. We have moved beyond the one-size-fits-all to finding delivery models that work specifically for particular groups of students and for various content areas. We welcome your comments and are happy to provide additional information. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? I just have one, and these numbers are very impressive, which leads me to the question. What's the percent of the kids that have failed these classes that make up the remedial during the summertime or the recovery? Do we have a number? I know we said 150 and 100, but what is that percentage-wise of the kids? How many kids take the opportunity to do it, in other words?
Mr. Gregoire, Dr. Weitenheimer, I don't have the specific percentage per se of students who failed and then took advantage, but I know that each of these programs has been increasing each summer to allow more and more students to participate. They have been very successful, and we would like to see them increase. It's just figuring out the logistics and getting the staff involved, but we are happy that the schools are
No, and
expanding.
again, you guys did a super job just looking at the numbers. That's very, very impressive. But my point is trying to get everybody that's failing involved. So.
Right. We'll
Absolutely.
give us an opportunity to go back and look at that data in a little different way, and we'll get you that information.
Okay,
That'd be
thank
good.
you.
You bet.
Okay. Good evening, President Gregoire, governing board members, Dr. Weitenheimer, and guests. In our second report this evening, we will show you the structures we want all of our teachers, new and continuing, to utilize from day one for effective instruction and intervention. To do that, Kathy Borgeson, Trevor Attenborough, Manager of Federal Programs, and I will provide a report on our deployment of multi-tiered systems of support, also known as MTSS, at both the district and school levels. As we continue to refine how we support students of all capabilities and at all levels, we know our interventions can stay the same when we know they're effective, can also change and improve for increased results, or new ones can be added to support that student learning. Through MTSS, our focus changes from which students need services to what services do students need. You are familiar with the DNF lists and progress reports, which are internal and external communication tools we may use on a quarterly basis. However, we want to highlight tonight that we are accomplishing what we are accomplishing daily to ensure student achievement and growth. We hire the very best teachers and are featuring the structures these professionals use daily to impact student learning by designing and deploying meaningful interventions. As we progress through this presentation, we will reference some of the items previously distributed to you and in front of you, including the MTSS one-page descriptive illustration, and it looks like this. The blue MTSS handbook that is tabbed, and we'll refer to those tabs, and then a reference grid highlighting some of the many interventions, and also you have a copy of the PowerPoint. So this one comes with lots of visuals for you. As I mentioned, we will discuss MTSS and the 3 tiers of intervention in Deer Valley and how this integrated and comprehensive framework focuses our work on the Arizona College and Career Ready Standards, core instruction, differentiated learning, and student-centered learning. Addressing individualized student needs and the alignment of our learning systems builds the necessary scaffolding for all students' academic, behavioral, and social success from their early years in DVUSD through graduation. We will also share intervention programs and specific personnel who provide support through the MTSS framework, our funding sources, and our next steps.
Over the past 2 years, our MTSS work team, comprised of more than 30 teachers, administrators, and staff members from each of the regions across the district, has worked to develop training materials and common language for MTSS across the district. Last year, this team developed the MTSS handbook, which you now hold, meeting together each month for 3 hours per meeting and also in smaller breakout teams. This team has worked over 2 years and continues this year to support the design and delivery of interventions and to meet the needs of every student in the district. The framework within which we provide student intervention is specifically termed Multi-Tiered System of Supports, or MTSS. And while the definition is displayed here and also on page 6 of the handbook tabbed in yellow, when we're working as a work team, we try to stress that MTSS is actually a needs-driven, evidence-based model utilizing a problem-solving framework to integrate instruction and intervention delivered to students at varying intensities or tiers. The goal of MTSS in our district, as stated on the one-sheet visual that you have, is that 100% of our students will achieve at high levels. To meet the goal of 100% of students achieving at high levels, MTSS deploys a problem-solving approach to student learning. Student intervention is specifically called out in step 3 of this cyclical process, where the intervention is applied to meet a need and later evaluated for success of the intervention in addressing the individual student learning need. This problem-solving work is done in both short and long cycles by classroom teachers, grade level teams, and school-wide MTSS teams at schools across our district. You can see that our MTSS work team has identified what we believe qualifies as an intervention. On page 29 of the MTSS handbook, which is tabbed in blue, you can see that to be designated as an intervention within the MTSS framework, the intervention must involve instruction and be provided in small groups in addition to regular instruction. Additionally, interventions must be provided consistently over an appropriate duration and have a logical progression of skills targeting specific student needs. Similarly, you can see that the MTSS work team has identified some practices, though they might be fine practices, that are not interventions per se when deploying this problem-solving framework. Within MTSS, Tier 1 instruction is that instruction that is provided to all students. This includes curriculum deployment, and differentiation. Within a K-8 setting, an example of Tier 1 may be a social studies lesson with explicit instructional objectives and outcomes. Additionally, within Tier 1, text might be differentiated for students by Lexile level for comprehension within that first tier of instruction.
And an example of Tier 1 instruction at a different grade level in a different subject area would be a high school math teacher who employs varied groupings and tiered assignments. Students are grouped and provided with differentiated assignments, often with the teacher working with a small group of students who are struggling the most. Our new assessment system, School City, has a feature whereby teachers can group students based upon assessment performance. This can help teachers in providing coursework based upon assessment data on performance of specific standards.
Tier 2 is intensive instruction in addition to Tier 1 instruction that is provided to some students. This intervention is delivered by classroom teachers in coordination with specialized staff. An example of Tier 2 in a K-8 setting might be that same student in the Tier 1 social studies instruction, but who is additionally needing support for reading comprehension. A second tier of support for this student might look like regular small group instruction focused on a specific comprehension strategies over a duration of 6 to 8 weeks. This intervention may be delivered by an interventionist or a reading specialist or even the classroom teacher.
And a high school student receiving Tier 1 math instruction, which included the grouping and tiered assignments, might still require additional intervention. So at Tier 2, an example of an added layer of instruction could include assignment to a weekly math intervention session. Based upon formative and summative assessment data, teachers assign students to an intervention session in which trained student peers work one-on-one with students on a specific skill and provide feedback for the student and the teacher. Teachers follow up with reassessment to ensure that the student has mastered the skill.
Tier 3 provides the most intensive support to a few students and is provided in addition to both Tiers 1 and Tier 2. An example of Tier 3 in a K-8 setting might be what is provided to a student who may be one or more grade levels behind in reading. This student would receive the same Tier 1 social studies instruction and perhaps the same targeted Tier 2 interventions mentioned previously. But additionally, the student might receive a third tier of intervention. For example, the student may participate in Read 180 for a semester or more to close that multi-year gap in Lexile level while still participating in grade level curriculum and support.
A high school math student receiving the Tier 1 instruction, including grouping and tiered assignments, as well as Tier 2 weekly math intervention sessions, may still require additional and more intensive intervention. Math Lab is an example of an intervention in which students are enrolled in the course, which parallels the Algebra 1-2 or geometry curriculum. The teacher targets requisite and prerequisite skills in which the student is deficient and supports the student's progress in his or her math class. Here is a non-exhaustive list of research-based intervention programs and strategies that can be and are used throughout our district. These programs and strategies target reading, writing, spelling, and math. We have provided you with a grid of these programs along with a description, the grade levels served, and the funding sources. It's on one of the handouts. All right. As you can see, we have more reading and literacy interventions than math interventions at this time. We have had MTSS intervention time embedded in our elementary school master schedules going into our 3rd year now. This dedicated time ensures that we have intervention time set aside daily for our kindergarten through 6th grade students. Middle schools and high schools present a much more complex scheduling challenge. Yet, we are working to ensure that there are opportunities for MTSS intervention time within the school day at those levels as well. The state tutoring grant, which provides funding for tutoring for students who have not yet demonstrated proficiency in Arizona Merit and may be at risk for failing, has expanded this year to include funding opportunities for additional grade levels. We have applied for this grant for grades 4 through 12 on behalf of 16 of our schools, including all 5 high schools. Many times our adopted texts provide intervention materials built into the resources. This can be shown in our K-5 Reading Street adoption, which includes the Reading Street Response to Intervention Kit, which is a Tier 1 intervention, and the Tier 2 Reading Street My Sidewalks, specific to special education students.
These are positions within our district that are dedicated to either providing intervention directly to students or to supporting teachers and school staff when providing intervention. For example, an RTI specialist provides academic intervention in grades K-8, and Title I instructional coaches work with teachers on Title I campuses to identify needs, improve instruction, and monitor all tiers of instruction. You may have noticed that the teacher ELL specialists are in both columns. These teachers work both directly with students learning English and also support teachers and staff who also work with our English language learners.
The funding for interventions is varied and vast, beginning with Title I and Title IV. For 12 of our schools, $5.1 million, including carry forward from prior years, is used to provide intervention for students with gaps in reading and math. Title IV provides $600,000 for before and after school intervention programs through our 21st Century grants at 5 of our schools. The success of our interventions at our Title I schools can be seen in the significant gains this past year in English language arts and math on the state assessment, as shared earlier this summer with you in the AZ Merit Report. Federal funds also, at approximately $800,000, provide for Head Start services and early intervention for children who come to us before kindergarten. Full-day kindergarten is an intervention DVUSD has considered important to provide early intervention to our youngest learners. This is a $2.5 million M&O investment in giving our 5- and 6-year-olds the best possible start in learning and the ability to immediately address literacy and numeracy gaps. We can draw a direct line of sight with this investment and the very few students who are identified in 3rd grade for retention with the Move On When Reading Law. We also provide intervention for our English language learners, K-12, from M&O, as well as in conjunction with Title III and SEI state funds for a total of $1.6 million. When we look at state funds, the $1.6 million provided through Move On When Reading and K-3 monies fund our reading specialists and academic facilitators who work with children and or teachers for intervention in all 3 MTSS tiers. The 301 menu monies are helping us provide intervention through Math 180 this year in 3 pilot schools. An intervention you hear about often is Read 180 and System 44. Each of those have benefited from these 301 menu monies, and our student results across all levels of campuses show greater than a year growth in reading, spelling, and comprehension. In fact, 14 of our schools had as many as all of their students make up to 2 years of growth in a single year, and that includes one of our high schools. Read 180 as a Tier 2 intervention is stronger, broader, and makes a significant impact on students who have reading deficits in grades 4 through 12. Plus, last year we expanded our use of System 44, and we have some noteworthy results with children who had reading decoding skills, and we have 300 kids who are able to decode at higher levels going into this school year. The 301 menu monies support assessments through School City and Dibbles testing to assess students. They show how our interventions are working and to help us more effectively group students for intervention, as Kathy mentioned. Our schools who used School City last year noticed that having School City for common formative assessments created by teachers for students at their campus allowed them to immediately note and address gaps in understanding across all content areas. These monies also provide support for PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Supports, our behavior intervention that is used across campuses to help ensure our students are able to stay in class for instruction. The state tutoring grant, as Kathy mentioned, originally provided funding to high school students who had not shown proficiency on AIMS and most recently AZ Merit. That grant has typically been about $5,000 per campus. As Kathy also mentioned, we have elementary and middle schools who could receive these funds this year as the grant has expanded to include lower grades. Two other unique grants that we are able to access provide intervention for special populations, including the Emergency Immigration Grant at $21,000 and the Homeless Grant at $40,000. Many of the funds we are able to access for intervention include specific limits on the use of those funds. An area that we need to continue to strengthen with intervention support is math. Although we are able to provide math intervention, we need to refine and increase the menu of intervention opportunities, as we do not have nearly as many research-based programs as we have for reading and literacy. We also know that MTSS looks different at the secondary level because of the focus for students on content, a wide variety of classes, and earning credits necessary for graduation. Each of our high schools has started small with interventions and are now growing and expanding their MTSS framework. We have allocated $40,000 from the 301 Menu Fund specific to help our high schools with their MTSS framework in offering interventions this year. We will continue to see great success as they think outside of the box and expand upon interventions they have in place already. This report has been on academic interventions specifically that we have in place through the MTSS framework. However, we have also been working over the past 3 years on behavioral interventions, and that too continues to be a focus area for us as we have increased opportunity and depth for intervention with students who have behavior concerns. We will have a board report later this fall on our work with the MTSS framework and behavioral and social supports for students. As students who struggle, those who are doing fine, and those who have high ability needs with varying levels of support, we believe that every child deserves to learn every day, and our challenge continues to be to meet them where they are and move them forward. Our goal is to ensure that every DVUSD student receives equitable, academic, and behavioral support that is culturally responsive, matched to their academic need, and developmentally appropriate, and as described in this report, provided through layers of increased intensity from universal, Tier 1, every student, to targeted, some students, Tier 2, to intensive, few students, Tier 3. I would like to invite any of you to join me anytime this year and visit some of the intervention programs from kindergarten through 12th grade, and I'll have that opportunity available for you later. Thank you.
Any comments? Mrs. Ordway.
It's very exciting to know that we are not talking about, the 25th, the bottom 25% quartile, that we're talking about all students and that MTSS will reach everyone. I am very interested in you keeping us up to date as the high schools evolve with programs for the high school students, as it's just always very dicey with that Tier 2 and definitely the Tier 3 doing it during a school day. So if you could keep us in the loop, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other comments? Go, Mrs. O'Brien.
Thank you, President Gregoire. Dr. Galligan, I can't tell you how excited I am to have such a comprehensive report on this topic. I recently met a constituent who has moved her student out of our district because she felt like she wasn't getting the proper support at the high school level. So it looks like we're focusing on that and putting some necessary resources there. So thank you so much for a wonderful report, all three of you.
Anything else, Kim?
Yeah, I've kind of heard the same thing. I've had a couple of parents who have commented that they've left our district because the supports aren't there, especially for their students that are kind of in trouble a little bit, and they want to catch it while they can. I am very encouraged to see the report and see the different changes, but some of the questions I have, and you can answer them whenever, it doesn't have to be today. I'd like to know, like, the number. You know, we have reading specialists. Are they certified reading specialists, and how many do we have? Do we have those at the high schools? I know, I believe you sent it to us in a Friday update where we were, or maybe it was in an email, talking about the Read 180, like the licenses, and it seemed like a very low number. So I wonder if they're being utilized, or are, I mean, if we put them in place, it's wonderful, but if they're not being used, it's concerning. I know that Read 180 is, from what I've seen, is the closest to a phonics-based reading intervention, and similar to, I think it's Baldrige or one of those, but it's very beneficial for students that need that, because not all students learn the same, and I'm concerned that it may not be fully utilized. So I'd kind of like to get a numbers picture versus a, it's wonderful that they're there, but are they being used? How many students are we actually touching? And are we seeing growth in those students? I know Read 180 helped my daughter a lot when she was younger, and I'm currently working with the school with my son, you know, because he needs those type of supports. I think I would also like to know if we're communicating these to parents. Parents work all day. They get up in the morning. They get their kids ready. They make sure they ate something. They get them on a bus. Sometimes they get home very, very late at night, and then they look at the kids' grade and say, I don't understand why they're not passing. I don't understand why they're not, and they don't know to investigate, to look into these. So I'd like to know if we have some kind of communication method to parents, so that they know we offer these. Because if their students struggling and they don't know we offer these, that's why they take their kids elsewhere. But if they see, okay, my kid's struggling, Deer Valley has this for me, I'm going to take a day off or a half day off, and I'm going to go into the school and I'm going to discuss X, Y, or Z program. And I just think that maybe that if we have the interventions, maybe that communication piece is what's missing and is the reason parents are leaving. And I guess that's about it.
Okay. Just to add on a little bit, I'm always about the numbers again. I know you quoted them during your presentation, the dollar amounts from each fund, but in a future report or board update, can I get specific for each one of these funds, and also the number of kids we're serving on each tier level? Again, I need to kind of put this in a perspective, a financial perspective, and again, just to see where we're at, and then gives me something to compare with other things. So, so if that could be done, I'd appreciate it. Any other comments?
Certainly.
Seeing none, thank you so much. Okay, there's no old business consent agenda. Mr. Bear. Oh, you're right. Oh, yeah. I was going to give you the day off. Never mind. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, President Gregoire, governing board members, and Dr. V. This evening I will be going over both certified staffing vacancies, the areas that we need, and I'll also be sharing information with you regarding our new hires. This is our clicker, right? Okay, our current state, we are 97.2% staffed at the campus level. If you step back and look district-wide, we are 97% staffed. We have filled 317 vacancies across the district. That includes both campus, district, and so all three itinerant staff. We also have added 5, it says 4 in front of you, but there are actually 5 as we added a kindergarten position over at Park Meadows, positions due to increased enrollment at particular grade levels. And we are currently looking at surplus this week as we are 10 days in and we have identified areas that are under-enrolled and could potentially fill some of those new posted vacancies. We also, as part of that 317 vacancies filled, we haven't yet filled, but we do have some more vacancies on top of that. We have had 6 resignations submitted since the first day of school, so we're working to fill those as well. Our comparison, if you look at the top right, 97% staffed. The 15-16 comparison to that is 98.6% staffed. So we are working hard to try and catch up to that number. And I just shared with you some of the things that trigger our difficulties. Currently, the land for K-6, preschool through 3rd grade, we have 5 vacancies. All of those vacancies are preschool and kindergarten. There are none at the 4-6 level. We do have 2 special education vacancies, and specialized staff is anything from a response to intervention or PE, music, art. We have 5 of those vacancies, and that equates a 9.9 FTE. If you recall, a vacancy does not always equate a 1.0 FTE. At the K-8 level, we do have 2 in the pre-K to 3 area, grades 4 through 6, 2 vacancies. 7 and 8, we still have 2, and both of those are still math. Special education, 5 vacancies, and in our specialized area, again, the same. It would be exploratory or special areas. We have 7 vacancies, and that equates 16 FTE. Middle school, they've done a nice job filling their vacancies. They have 1 in the 7A, and that is a social studies position. We have 3 special education vacancies, and there are no needs for support or exploratory staffing right now. High school actually looks a lot better also compared to last year. Both middle and high do. Math and sciences, there's 1 math vacancy and the rest are science vacancies to equal the 4. In the history and ELA, it's the ELA side that is vacant right now. 1 special education vacancy and 1 foreign language. It is a Spanish vacancy, and that equates 4.8 FTE. We are fully covered with all of these vacancies. We are currently utilizing contracted services in the area of special education and nursing. I believe 2, maybe 3 of those 6 resignations since school starting were nurses. So we had to deploy contract nurses to those areas. But we are covering all of our other vacancies right now with either long-term substitutes or short-term certified substitutes. And information regarding our newly hired teachers. As you know, we just met with all of our new teachers prior to the start of the year, both through our new to the profession 3-day course and then the induction session that we held the following week. We have 84 new to the profession teachers. 39 of them are at the K-6 level, 31, 7, 12, and 14 of them are preschool all the way through 12th grade. We have hired 162 experienced new teachers, and they will participate in quarterly induction classes. The above group will participate in monthly mentor classes, and we're proud to announce that we have hired a special education mentor who will support the new special education teachers, and second year also receive that support from the K-6, the 7-12, and the special education mentors. Here are the teachers broken out by experience. 34% is new to the profession, and then you'll see that we've hired 18% with 1 to 3 years of experience. The same for 4 to 6 years of experience, 11% for 7 to 10 years of experience, and 19% greater than 10 years of experience. We've learned through surveying, we always survey our new hires, that we recruited 57% in-state and 43% out-of-state. That number's close to the same as last year, but a little bit adjusted, more from out-of-state than last year. And then our main pipeline right now, 47 of them came from ASU, 30 from NAU, 18 from GCU, and we increased from U of A. I think we had 2 last year, and this year we grabbed 8 of them, so we were happy about that. And they also reported to us how they were recruited to Deer Valley, and these are maintained at our top 4, except the order has changed. It is in rank order. So number 1 would be recruitment.com. They found us on a site that recruitment.com sends our postings out to and then drives them to our website. So it was either through them or directly to our website. Student teaching was not number 2 last year. This moved up to number 2. If they were student teaching in our district or had done internship work in our district, they decided to come to DVUSD. Our third method was through our own job fair, and our fourth still is word of mouth within our own employee group. They hear about the happiness of the people working here, and they are recruiting people to our district. So that these 4 strategies are the strategies that we will continue to use as they are successful for us, as well as the other strategies that we have identified for you in earlier board meetings. I'd also like to share with you that ADE is working with ASPA. They are continuing this year to collect the number of vacancies, this point in time that every district across Arizona has, and their experiences in trying to recruit. They're going to kick that information back to us, as well as use it as part of the teacher shortage task force down at ADE. And when we have that information, we'll have a better idea on how we compare with our peer districts, and that information will be shared with you as well. And any questions that you have at this time?
You just answered my question. I was going to see how we compare. So anyway, thank you for being on top of that. Any other comments? Mrs. Ordway?
Jenna, when you spoke about the high school vacancies that we're covering them with either short or long-term sub, which obviously we're covering them with something, and maybe this moves a little bit into Gail Galligan's area, or if we're doing short-term subs or long-term subs and they are not highly qualified in those areas, is that a precursor possibly to these kids needing a tier 2 or help with the information that they're supposed to be learning?
It's always a possibility. If I will share from my personal experience when I was a principal in a similar type of situation. If you know that you have a substitute covering a class, it is pretty typical that you would send in additional supports to make sure that the curriculum was being taught the way it needed to be, and that a strong teacher was being placed in the classroom to support, if possible, as well, so that would not happen. If it does, though, you do identify it quite quickly, and most of the time those principals either do call Dr. Galligan or they are calling Human Resources to look at better options.
Yeah, because I will go back on personal experience when Aaron Michael was a freshman. His whole first year of algebra was long-term subs that switched. So I was just wondering if you guys have already made a plan for that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing none. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We're going back to old business, which there is none, so consent agenda. Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mr. President. President, I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve consent agenda items
Second.
8A through 8G.
and seconds it. All those in favor say aye.
Whoa. Let him repeat that. I didn't. Oh, I second that. I'm sorry. I thought you pulled one off.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 9A, approve human resources changes. Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve human resources changes.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any conversation? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 5-0. Item 10, preview. This is a preview item. Review of fiscal year 2017 salary increases and possible next steps.
President Gregoire, members of the board, Dr. Weitenheimer, this information here is just to kind of recap what has transpired with salary increases. Just as a leading up to the report, I wanted to remind you that we had multiple opportunities to look at salary adjustments during the course of last year, starting with the M&O override, which was approved thanks to our voters back in November. And then in May, when Proposition 123 passed, that gave us another opportunity to make salary adjustments for our human capital in the district. So kind of recapping that, and I've titled this Summary of the Salary Increases. And the very last item isn't a salary increase, but it is a check that our employees will get to be able to cash. So professional growth that was earned, about $58,000, a little over $58,000. That was added to those employees that earned it last year. Again, the M&O override, the flat increases, which varied by employee group, ranging from $1,200 to $1,900, was $5.2 million. As a reminder, we started out at $4.2 million was the original plan, and due to a commitment that we wanted to make to our employees, we increased that by $1 million to $5.2 million. The Classroom Site Fund increased. It is based on a per weighted student count number. That amount went up. And so that provided a very small increase at $20, a base increase for those that qualify for Classroom Site Fund. Essentially, those are teachers in our district. The Proposition 123, we were targeting $6.1 million of Proposition 123 funds. We came up a little bit short of the $6.1 million, but this provided a differentiated salary increase for our employee groups and a differentiated salary increase within each group, at least for the certified and other professional staff. So this, and these are not intended to be technically correct, again, just a summary, but we identified a predictive salary for teachers based on years of service, and we normed the data, and if their predictive salary was less than their current salary, we held them harmless. If their predictive salary was more than their existing salary, we assigned the new predictive salary to them. And so that provided a varied increase to our employees. We also established the hard-to-fill addenda by position. Previously, that was only for those that were hired new into the position after a certain point in time. Classified employees enjoyed a 2.5% increase as a result of Proposition 123. And in the admin exempt group, we changed the staffing standards for assistant principals and teachers on assignment at our elementary, our kindergarten through our preschool through 8th grade campuses. And then we allocated $57,000 to deal with some salary inconsistencies within the principal and assistant principal ranks. And then finally, I mentioned this isn't necessarily a salary increase, but just as a reminder, with the fiscal year 16 Prop 123 money, we reserved $3 million of that for longevity pay on a graduated scale, ranging from $300 to $1,200. And just worth noting here, we are scheduled, we're planning to release those funds to our employees on September 15th. So that's coming around the corner. So what does all that mean in terms of what our employees were able to see? and I would be remiss not to have some small fonts, so I decided I wanted to oblige, at least in one slide. But I can read from this, at least from my printed copy. I don't know that I can read it from the screen. So on the certified side, 1,723 teachers, 100% of them received the $1,400 M&O flat increase. 902, or 52% of them, received the predictive salary, so that was more than $500 up to just under $10,000 in an increase. 708 of those 1,723 teachers received the $500 Prop 123 increase, so that's 41%. And then 113 teachers received just a conversion of their hard-to-fill addenda into base salary, so about 7% of the population, of the teaching population. And then this would be a duplicate number, just so I'm reporting it accurately. 349 of the 1,723 also received a 20%, or 20% of the population also received the $2,000 hard-to-fill addenda, new for the first time. On the other professional staff, there are a total of 211 positions. 100% of them received the $1,400. None of them received the predicted salary. We opted, because there wasn't salary inconsistencies amongst that group, we opted to provide them with a $500 Proposition 123 increase. So 75% received that, or 158 of the other professional staff. The 53 remaining received the conversion of their hard-to-fill addenda into base salary. So effectively, just so that I'm being clear, there was no impact to their total compensation as a result of that. So they received no additional funds as a result of Prop 123. But 61 of those other professional staff were previously in positions that would have earned them a hard-to-fill addenda, but they were hired prior to the hard-to-fill addenda, so they received that additional $2,000 of the hard-to-fill addenda. So 29% of the OPS received that increase as well. What does that all mean? Average base salary increase for the teachers and the other professional staff, 6.6%. If you look at total compensation, which would add in the hard-to-fill addenda numbers that I shared above, that's a 7.1% increase for that group. Classified staff received a 7.9% increase in salary, and the administrative exempt group, a much smaller percentage. It should be noted that one of the reasons for that is there was no Prop 123 increase for the admin exempt group, as alternatively they actually received some additional staffing that's not in that percentage, the additional assistant principal and teachers on assignment. And then just another reminder at the bottom, those percentages do not include the longevity payment. That will be a one-time payment that will be paid out in September. That being said, in terms of NST considerations for 2016-17, we have received a great deal of feedback from the salary adjustments and changes that we've, in increases that our employees have received. And so we're keeping kind of a running list of those things that the NST would, we think, need to consider during this upcoming session. So this is not intended to be an exhaustive list. In fact, you'll see a couple blank lines at the bottom of the page, and that's so that we could certainly add to the list as we continue to move on. And so I'll go through these quickly and would welcome some input from the board as a result of this, because I know that the board might have received some feedback as well regarding the salary increases. But certain members of our staff did not have their professional growth calculated correctly in the salary calculator. To put that in perspective, it's about 79 employees and would be about $140,000 in total cost. That includes salary and benefits to make those adjustments. Thanks to the folks in our Human Resources Department, they have analyzed that group of individuals, and thanks to Dr. Smith, we've run that group through the salary calculator, and we can quantify that number for you this evening. Those are rough estimates, though, I must admit. Counselors and other professional staff requesting to be paid in the same manner as teachers. We, again, did not use the salary calculator for the other professional staff, including counselors who fall in that category, because many of the other professional staff have different beginning rates of pay, different than the teachers. The teachers all have one uniform start amount, and the calculator depends on that to be able to determine their predictive salary. So the salary calculator that we built uses $35,100 as the starting point and then adds years of service onto that. Not all of the positions within the other professional staff group would start at the same dollar amount. So it's a little bit more difficult to calculate what that would look like. And in addition to just their trying to determine a predictive salary, the counselors have made a request that they return to being included as we had previously as teachers, not only in their salary amount, but in their performance pay. Due to a Court of Appeals ruling, that is not possible to use Classroom Site Fund money to pay their performance pay. But as they have indicated, there are other districts that that make that up with other funds outside of the Classroom Site Fund. So there would be additional costs to be able to not only consider their salaries as part of the salary calculator, but also to make adjustments to their performance pay. The third bullet there, social workers just adjusting their starting salary and providing additional addenda for professional licensing like we do for other groups. And just to give you some sense of magnitude, we currently have 2 social workers in the district. So it's something that this is relatively new for us, and that's why this is on the list, because it is an evolving position in our district. The nurses have asked about differentiated pay, differentiating pay for school nurses versus one-on-one nurses, and looking at adjustments between registered nurses and licensed practical nurses, RNs versus LPNs. Teaching hiring issues, you heard Ms. Moffitt speak about the fact that we still have some vacancies. So one of the things that we would like to consider during the NST process this year is what recruitment tools do we have to be able to fill those vacancies. Certainly looking at starting pay, making sure that we're competitive when it comes to starting pay, as competitive as possible, and then the dollar amount per year, giving credit for years of service and how many years that might include, and things to at least consider as we start the discussions this year. Salary compression due to change in exempt employees. This is a little bit specific, but we made some adjustments due to the Department of Labor ruling about the minimum salary for exempt employees. So now range 4 and 5 on our exempt schedule are now, we adjusted range 4, did not adjust range 5 through 9. And as a result of that, range 4 and 5 only have just over $800 difference between the two. Also, by converting some of the previously exempt employees to classified employees, there were some adjustments that made that did not preserve the differential for those people that have experience in those positions. So something that we have added to our list. Liquidated damages for employees that break their contract. Ms. Moffitt, I think, mentioned 6 employees that have recently resigned since the start of the school year or have essentially broken their contract. Liquidated damages would allow us to have embedded in their employment agreement that if they were to break their contract, that there would be a financial consequence to do so. Many districts have a provision in place, and it does also include an appeal process in the event of a circumstance that you would want to potentially abate that penalty. Hard to fill addenda and positions that qualify, since we are now doing it by position, middle school positions like math and science have asked that they be considered also hard to fill and receive the same opportunity with hard to fill addenda that we did for everybody else. And then we've heard some inquiries about those people that had their conversion of base salary that effectively did not receive a Prop 123 increase in their salary. And finally, those that only received a $500 increase, so their existing salary was greater than their predicted salary, they received a $500 Prop 123 increase. And there's been some inquiry about the fact that they've only received $500 and others received significant amounts more than that. Again, the intent of what we wanted to use the Prop 123 funds was to address the inconsistency in the teacher salaries that we had. The now infamous scatter plot graph that we have shared. And so effectively what we intended to do with those funds was to try and address those inconsistencies in a way that would increase half of the population. So half of those below the trend line would get moved appropriately up on the scatter plot. And as I previously reported, we were able to do that for 52% of the teaching population. So there are some significant adjustments that we were able to make as a result of the increases. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but we were able to effectively accomplish what we set out to with the increases. We made a commitment with the M&O override that all employees would receive a salary increase. We did that with flat increases for our employees. We adjusted some of the inequities with amongst the teaching ranks, and provided for hard-to-fill addenda by position, so that there was some fairness, if you will, for those that were teaching those difficult positions. So with that, I have a couple blank lines there. Would love to get some insight from the governing board. It is a preview item, so there isn't any action necessarily required of this item, unless there's some direction the board would like to provide to us.
Okay, before we open it up for the board, we have a public speaker that wants to speak at this. And so, yeah, so is it Miko Price? Mr. Bear's going to give it a quick admonishment, then you're welcome to speak, okay?
The board invites public comment on the district's business in general and on agenda items in specific. All speakers must observe the rules of decorum. Speakers must fill out a card listing their name, address, and topic, and hand it in to the board secretary prior to the president calling for the meeting to order. Speakers must make their comments in no more than 3 minutes. If necessary, to accommodate all speakers within the 30-minute overall limit, the board president may shorten each speaker's time. Constructive criticism is in order. Rudeness, vulgarity, disruptive conduct, and remarks disrespecting personal dignity are not in order and will not be allowed. Under the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the governing board cannot discuss or act on any items not listed on the agenda. Board members may respond to criticism made by a speaker, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda.
Okay, state your name, then you have 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Miko Price. Dear President Gregoire, members of the board, and Dr. V. I am a counselor at Deer Valley High School. I am also the coordinator of our district's flight team. I wanted to address the board and respectfully ask that you review counselor salaries. We were led to believe that we would be included in the formula that was used for teachers. Some of us were hired at a time where our salaries were not equivalent with our experience due to budget issues, which is the same issue that was being fixed for teachers. Counselor positions require a master's degree. So if I use a 48-hour master's degree as an example, a counselor hired today with a master's degree with 4 years experience would make more than I do with 11 years experience. A teacher hired today with a master's degree and 1 year of experience would make $600 more than I do with 11 years of experience. And if you take into account performance pay, it's about $2,600 more than I make currently. I was excited, along with my fellow counselors in a similar position, that this inequity would be recognized and fixed, but was disappointed when it didn't come to pass. So I again respectfully ask that you reconsider our salaries with the 2017 budget, and I thank you for including this topic in the negotiation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that, I think Mr. Miglerino would like our input, our comments on the list, and if there are any others to let them know so the NST can review. Do you want to go? Mrs. Fisher, go ahead.
Actually, I have a couple things on the liquidated damages. Do we have that for any employee group at all?
President Gregoire, Ms. Fisher, we currently do not.
Not even in administrators?
That is correct.
Oh, okay. Every district I've ever worked with does have that. And so I really would support it, just if we're giving input, because sometimes it does keep you from, yeah, I've got to pay out that big thing, I'm not leaving. And then we have DVEA that represents the teachers group. We have DVESPA that does the classified, and we have the BLT for the administrators. Who represents all the others? I mean, do they have a seat at the table? Like counselors, where would they fall? They're not DVEA, they're not DVESPA, and they're not BLT. I mean, do they fall under one of the groups? Do they fall under, it's just a question.
President Gregoire, Ms. Fisher, specifically the counselors would fall within the DVEA representation.
Okay, what about, so I guess the question, best way to ask it would be, is everybody represented at the table?
I would say that there's not a document that we could point to that would describe everybody's representation by position, but it is something that we have had some conversations about, is just a listing of all positions and identifying the representation that they would have.
And this is just for like negotiations, not necessarily budget, correct?
That's correct. Although we don't have a budget committee in this district, so we actually utilize the negotiation solution team to be able to have some of that input.
And when do you start doing the budget?
The budget itself, the negotiation solution.
The
NST,
budget, what
yeah.
would be a budget committee?
Yeah, negotiation solution team starts in September. We meet monthly through typically January, and in January, February, and March, we meet as needed, which is more than monthly.
Okay.
Questions? These considerations, the NST is going to take on immediately and come back with the proposal.
President Gregoire, this is just a running list that we're keeping. I have sent this list to both the DVA president and the DVESPA president. We have not had our first meeting. The negotiation solution team has not had their first scheduled meeting as of yet. So we don't have all the groups rallying around one list. This is a list that we have created. So that's why I couched it as not being a comprehensive list at this point in time.
Okay. Secondly, there's one thing I want to add to the list is dual enrollment teachers. I know we get extra money for having these classes, and I would like to make a position that these are hard to fill, because some of these, they have to be qualified as a college or a professor and a high school teacher. So I don't think we have too many, but I would add that we need to add that too, at the very minimum, as a hard-to-fill position, because if we lose some of those teachers, we're going to lose that income and the opportunities for the kids. So another thing I want to emphasize is we just lost 3 nurses. We really need to address that, because I think, again, we left that out of the equation, and there are inequities where we have nurses who have been here forever, and we're hiring new nurses that are getting near or close to the same pay. We have those with the counselors. What she just mentioned here was kind of unbelievable, that they're not getting. They were part of the compression, part of the years where nobody got the raises. And again, the list you have here is, at least from everything I've heard, is pretty well completed with the additions that I just mentioned. But I would like for us to address this sooner rather than later. Now, refresh me on, when you gave your presentation, you said we had 6.0 or 6.0 082 million from Prop 123. Wasn't that corrected to be 6.7 million?
President Gregoire, yeah, the amount actually was greater than the $6.1 million that we used to allocate. But the amount was the actual amount of Prop 123 had some additional inflation in it that in our first pass of the budget we had already included. So a portion of the Prop 123 money went to balance the budget to the baseline budget that we used because we had an incorrect inflationary number in the first pass of the budget. So, and it was not an inconsequential number. It was about 0.5% on the entire budget.
Okay. And then so you're saying the additional 750,000, when we were here last time with the NST, we never allocated that additional 750,000. You're saying that's already been allocated to?
President Gregoire, yes. The $750,000 that was set aside during the special meeting that we had, that money has been allocated in. It was within the 6.1 million.
Okay.
And so that has been allocated, all but just a small percentage of it.
So every dime has been allocated, carry forward to everything.
At this point, yes, we have a balanced budget with all of the available resources that we're expecting.
Okay. Yeah, again, I'm concerned that it kind of slipped through our fingers without us even knowing about it. I'll address it later, but I have some concerns, and I need more information before I speak them. So, any other comments? Mrs. Fisher, go ahead.
If we've gone to current year, and we're dropping enrollment, how is that going to impact? Dollar-wise, it's not going to be. Do we have room for that in where we're at, balanced?
Yeah, so President Gregoire, Ms. Fisher, so right now we're looking at about a 200 student difference. So just in round numbers, that's about $1 million reduction. That $1 million won't be realized in this current year, 2016-17, but assuming that we're able to not decline any further, that $1 million would be realized in fiscal year 18, the 2017-18 school year. Unfortunately, if that's a trend that continues and we decline not only this year but decline next year, we'll have to make up the $1 million, or we'll suffer the $1 million loss plus the loss, so it'll be compounded in fiscal year 18.
You're forgetting, as you know, we have a 15% override, and we were only able to apply 10% of it to the Prop 123 money. So next year we'll be able to apply the full 15%, which is approximately about $800,000 more dollars.
President Gregoire, that was not forgotten. The specific question was, what will the impact be on the reduction of students? What you are mentioning is correct. We were limited in the amount of the M&O override because we were established by the actual ballot question. And because of Prop 123, the 15% will increase, and there will be a significant amount of money that would be available to us as a result of that for the 17-18 school year. That will not be available to us in 16-17. That is accurate.
Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead.
President Gregoire, I had earlier requested that we have a discussion as a board about the NST process and it being separate from the budget, and that they receive more direction from the governing board, so that that they're just not struggling with words, sorry, that they're kind of separated, and that we say this is what you have to negotiate with, and that we work with the rest with our administration. So I think this board needs to spend a little bit more time on the process that occurred last year so that we don't have those, end of the year or end of the process meetings where we were all sitting in here late night with NST trying to iron out some of those details. I want to make sure we give them proper direction up front. So if we can have a study session to discuss that, or if there's a time in maybe before our August meeting to do that. I don't know where we can have that time, but I think it would be advisable for us.
You would rather have it sooner than later?
I would think so. As I recall, Mr. Miglerino, is your first meeting in September with the NST?
President Gregoire, Ms. O'Brien, that is correct.
So if we
I think we can add it to our current, I'll check with Dr.
Perfect.
Whitehammer.
Thank you, President Gregoire.
Okay.
No, she got it, because I think it's multiple times we've all requested that same conversation. I really just want to express that it is important that we actually have it.
Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Miglerino, I want to refer back to Mr. Gregoire's comments earlier about the $1.5 million that we were looking at allocating to salaries at that joint meeting with the NST. And there was a compromise there where $750 was set aside for a future meeting when we would decide how that would be allocated into salaries. And now it's apparently been absorbed someplace. It disappeared. Help me out here. Where is it?
President Gregoire, Mr. Bear, yes, a portion of those funds were used for multiple purposes. One was to address some of the salary adjustments that needed to be corrected in the data that we used to determine the salary calculator. But the majority, I won't say the majority of it, a good portion of it, $240,000 of it, went to provide the increase for the other professional staff, those 211 people. The reason that this chart is actually broken down between the teachers and the other professional staff is $240,000 of the $750 went to the other professional staff that we shared with the board because the language, not intentionally, but the language that we actually approved in our haste in that joint meeting excluded the other professional staff from consideration.
I thought we were going to get back together and discuss that before that money was allocated. I guess not, huh?
Yeah, it was my understanding that we were going to continue these discussions because of the lateness of Prop 123, and the state would allow us to continue to adjust.
Well, I can provide that information again here tonight orally. So $240,000 went to the other professional staff increase. $144,000 went to additional special ed paraprofessionals. $165,000 went to 3 world language teachers. $70,000 went to an additional psychologist, and then the $81,000 for teacher adjustments due to corrections in years of service and that we received to update or correct the salary calculator.
Well, I have a question. We had the infamous requirements list at that time, right? AKA the Christmas wish list. Did any of that money get allocated to that?
President
in any
Gregoire,
way, shape, or form?
Mr. Barrett, on that wish list included the paraprofessionals and the world language teachers and the psychologists. So yes, a portion of the money did get identified for some of the items that were on the wish list.
Before, okay.
I have a serious problem with that. That was not the understanding we had at that meeting. That had been taken off the table by the board, and now we find out that money's now been allocated to that Christmas list. Mr. President, we need to have a further discussion on this.
And before I send it off to you girls, the $140,000 you said in the corrected education, has that been included in this year's budget? You said the HR has helped update the early
Oh,
on.
I'm sorry. I think I understand the question. President Gregoire, the $140,000 has not, the professional growth adjustment has not been included in the budget, nor has a provision been made to fund that adjustment to the salary calculator.
Okay, it has not.
It has not.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify, when we set aside that $750,000, it was because what has been called the wish list, it's been called a Christmas list, it's been called a requirements list, had a mix of different things on it, and some of them were things that were required, were needed, are well documented that they were needed, and the $750,000 actually was short of the things that really were necessities based on student enrollment, based on program needs, and that's the reason that $750,000 was set aside. So I just wanted to clarify that at least, and I'm pretty sure my notes say the same thing, is that we had intentionally pulled that part aside for those purposes. Not all, it didn't cover everything that was on that list because not everything was documented as needed, but the items that were, that's the reason it was set aside.
Mrs. O'Brien.
Mr. Miglerino, these dollar amounts that you just reviewed, did we not vote on them as a board as part of the budget?
President Gregoire, Ms. O'Brien, I'm going to say yes, but I wouldn't be able to evidence that to you this evening. It was part of the budget. I think our pledge would be, let me recreate the information that we shared with the board and provide that at a further time, preferably in a Friday update, just so that it would get to you quicker, not for any other reason.
And that's fine. I know that there was a discussion about that $750,000, but I also recollect that after that meeting that we did receive updates and information about spending that money along the way, and this board did vote to move forward with the budget. I don't believe that, I guess if there are board members who weren't aware that they were doing that, I don't believe it was for lack of information. I recall reading information like that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and again, I'll reserve my comments till I get more information, but anyway, let's move on to next item, classroom site fund.
So President Gregoire, members of the board, Dr. Weitenheimer, this is also a preview item just to kind of review the classroom site fund, also commonly referred to as Prop 301 money, and just kind of where we're at with this. So in regards to this is the approved plan. So we previewed this on June 7th, approved it on June 28th, and revised it on July 12th. We made some minor adjustments. And so this is the approved plan. So this has already been approved by the board, and so there have been steps taken to be able to implement what the board has already approved with this plan. Specifically, what we wanted to share with you in more detail this evening is the menu money, or it's also commonly referred to as Fund 13, which is 40% of the classroom site fund. It's worth noting here that the information that we provide is based on a per pupil allocation that the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, or JLBC, establishes each year. And as we mentioned previously during the salary presentation, the per pupil allocation went up just a small amount for last year, and so it's at $332 per weighted student count. As that changes, it also changes the available amount that we have within all three funds within the classroom site fund. Another factor that changes the available resources that we have would be any carry forward from one year to the next. With the way we address performance pay. That is minimal, if not zero. We exhaust all of the available resources in the way that the performance pay is allocated to our teachers. If we have some change of staff and some attrition, we might have some carry forward as a result of the base salary increases that we have in both Fund 11 and Fund 13. But the lion's share of the carry forward that we have, which is almost $1 million for this year's plan, is as a result of monies that are not tied to salaries for the teachers. Again, teachers, there is a restriction as part of the Court of Appeals ruling that these funds are reserved solely for teachers. So just kind of looking in greater detail on the Fund 13, or the menu monies within the Classroom Site Fund. This is just that same information, just in a little bit different format. So the base salary increase is 41.8% of the allocation. That was established by the governing board when the Classroom Site Fund was first put into play, and has remained at 41.8% since the 2001 when Classroom Site Fund was established. In about the 2007-2008 timeframe, we adjusted the hiring schedule and provided a flat increase of $1.574 million out of the Classroom Site Fund to fund the adjustment we made to the teacher hiring schedule, and that has remained a flat amount throughout the duration. For state assessment intervention and teacher development, those amounts vary from year to year. Included in this year's plan are some considerations of the carry forward that we have from prior years, and those are to meet needs that the district has. And we enjoy some benefits of that. Some of the interventions that were spoken about earlier in Dr. Galligan's reports are funded from here. So if you were to add up those percentages, you'll see 115.6% of the allocation is being spent, again, because we have almost $1 million worth of carry forward in the plan. But more specifically, as we break this down, within the state assessment intervention, money that goes directly to teachers is $690,000. And then within teacher development, almost $1 million. These are monies paid to teachers directly for development opportunities that they have outside of their contract obligations. So as a result of that, of the entire amount of the Classroom Site Fund, only 10.6% of the Classroom Site Fund is not paid to teachers currently. It is going to other purposes, and that's what that pie graph shows on the on this slide. And so 105% of that of the allocation is going again, because we're exhausting some of the carry forward, is going directly to teachers in one way, shape, or form. And then just what our plan is when it comes to the Classroom Site Fund, because we have made some intentional adjustments to the plan, especially for this year. So we are using carry forward to meet those district needs. Again, those are to provide some intervention specifically, and for some startup costs for some things such as the coding program that we're getting started. In fiscal year 18, we know we have to reduce not only the professional development, some of the items that we had that we used to balance our budget, and some of those startup costs to get those dollars within the allocation, because we'll be exhausting the carry forward, and those are one-time monies. They're not expected to be available once they are spent in future years. And then we're going to continue that plan for the next 2 years, and then the last year for the Classroom Site Fund will be fiscal year 21. So it's going to require some action to be able to continue Classroom Site Fund or Prop 301 monies, and that action is not something that we have any control over. That's going to require a statewide initiative and or legislative action. So that's kind of our plan related to the Classroom Site Fund, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none. Okay, no more public comments. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.